It's Wednesday afternoon, and you're saying to yourself, why are we live on Sportswire Radio? But I promise you, this is for very, very good reasons here because we are kind of tying the bow on the final chapter, you may say, on XCW's successful season. It's 20th in the books, which is why it's the gold standard, as I continue to say, in this sport. And our guest here this afternoon has been a huge part of it inside the ring and now outside the ring, where he's calling the things. He's giving his hard hitting analysis as the play by play man alongside JJ. And he even kind of corrected me in a rather good way because our guest recently on Sportswire, he sort of corrected me on that. But more kidding aside, he is going to talk about his decorated career in places like the XAWA and also especially in XCW, where in a 5-year span, he really, really set the standard as one of the top draws here in this sport as a world champion, international champion, hardcore, and a tag team champion alongside being an Extreme King winner, which also led him maybe to his biggest award yet, which was the 2022 XCW Wrestler of the Year, voted by the fans here in the XCW galaxy. This man needs no further introduction, but because he is actually the man who does this like me and does a far better job, I have to give him that introduction that many of his peers in the XCW locker room have gotten. So with that, wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, the play-by-play man for XCW. His name is Eric Blackheart. My friend, how are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, definitely. It was tough, trying to pull that one off, even though because you're in the chair literally, and obviously you see this all the time. So I wanted to make sure you got a good one here. I don't know if it was my best one yet, but we'll certainly find out. But obviously, a tremendous honor to have you, sir. There is a lot to talk about here in the world of
Sure.
XCW. I want to talk about your career, certainly for sure. It recently ended at Summer Mania against an old foe that actually now very well could be primed and poised to be at the top of XCW, especially on behalf of EBW. But, let's talk about the final chapter, though. The season is ended. And how do you feel from watching now that you have a chair outside the ring? How do you feel that the overall season went here for XCW now that it's concluded?
Oh, this has been an absolutely fantastic year for XAWA. For some reason, or for XCW, sorry. This has not been a good year.
You're Eric Blackheart. I'm not going to correct
It's
you.
not been a good year for XAWA because they haven't existed for several years. No, this has been a great season for XCW, and it just seems to be getting better each year. Like it was really good in 2020. We started getting really good in 2021. 2022 was a really, really good season. Now this one's been even better, and it's going to be really hard for us to top ourselves next year, but I think we might be able to do it.
Oh, I have no doubt that you will. And this
Right.
is also why I feel that, and I continue to say this, that XCW is the gold standard in this sport. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
people that they're in different states, different places, and they proclaim this and that. We love those companies. We love having them here on Sportswire. But this company, to me, really goes above and beyond the means. What they do for the XCW Galaxy, the loyalty of the XCW Galaxy here for 20 years straight. And you think about the storylines, you think about the talent that we've cultivated. I had said this here with Julian Void Jacobs, a man you know very well, by the way.
Yes.
You certainly know very, very well.
Yes, I
And
do.
I had said that there's really about 15, maybe even 20 guys in this locker room that could be a world champion in any other place, in any other state that comes on here. And I really think that this is why XCW really sets the bar because, again, you've got the talent. We're going to get to the production. Certainly, you know a little thing about that as well. We're gonna,
Yes,
all
I
the
do.
different things that XCW brings to the table. I really think sets the standard. And I think you guys will top actually of it this year because of just everything that this company has to offer, the storylines, the wrestlers, the footage, the packaging. I mean, you guys are almost in a way kind of like the WWE network.
I mean, I can't agree with you anymore, Tom, because everybody out there, everybody in the locker room, everybody backstage, everybody behind the scenes busts their behinds to make this product what it is. Everybody gives 110% every show, does their best to knock everything out of the park. There have been very, very few missteps this season. Everybody has been on their A game, and you can really see it in the product.
Absolutely. And I'm curious also now that you've basically kind of, I think, taken over and watching things from afar, what's it been like these last, I'd say, 3.5 months now that you've gotten to watch everything unfold and being kind of as objective as you can? What's that been like?
Less painful for sure. No, it's really cool to be able to sit back and actually just watch and be able to talk about it rather than actually have to be there in the middle of it. I mean, I guess I could say I have a unique perspective being as I've faced a lot of the people that I'm now
Sure.
commentating on, and can provide some unique insight. So it brings a little bit of a different dynamic to the table than Steve-O and JJ did. But I think, and I think he will tell you, I think JJ has been even better now since I've been on the table too. So
So do
like
I.
he and I play off of each other just
I
so well.
think the same way, and I love Steve-O. Steve-O is the
I do
man.
too.
Steve-O does a lot of different things in XCW. He's kind
Yes.
of like our utility player almost for the
Mm-hmm.
baseball fans out there. But I really feel like with your career, right, 21 years in this sport, what you've done as a world champion in different promotions and what you've done in terms of knowing different things, I think it provides that kind of background, that perspective that we need in XCW. It's almost in a way like you guys, not that you guys are trying to emulate JR and the King, but you have that kind of almost playing off each other where, you're obviously the veteran, you've seen it all. And JJ's obviously calling the things and he's kind of analyzing it in that different take. And I really feel like you guys have played so well off each other and also painting the picture, because I always say this all the time. I've been doing this for 5 years and I've interviewed baseball players, I've interviewed college athletics and coaches and all those different things. And I always feel like in a lot of ways being in the booth, being at the broadcast table, whatever you want to call it for the XCW Galaxy fans, I feel like you are painting a picture of what we're going to see over these 2+ hour XCW shows. Do you feel the same way that you and JJ have that kind of responsibility?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're there to help tell the story. I mean, we're there to help tell the story just as much as the performers in the ring are there to tell the story. We fill in the gaps where, might not be as obvious to people watching at home what's going on. Like that's our job. Like we tell the story, we cover for the wrestlers if they make mistakes. Like that's our bit, that's our job, and we know we're doing a good job when you can't tell that there's any mistakes.
Well, I'm
And
curious.
you can follow the story.
Absolutely. And I'm curious in a way, and I don't know if I've asked this, but because obviously you've been in the ring, so it's maybe a different way as somebody that's kind of now transitioned to doing commentary. Do guys and gals ask you, let's say, hey, I thought you called it one way in the ring, or did you see something that maybe I could improve upon, or just maybe don't tell me names because half the locker room at this point's been on Sportswire. I'll probably get the other half between now and 2024 over the next few months. But I'm curious though, do you get comments from different individuals in the locker room about maybe certain things you've said?
Not really. Most of the time it's just heaps and heaps of praise. Like every
Okay.
time somebody mentions my commentary work, they're absolutely just floored by it. Which is great. I really appreciate all the kind words that they
You
give
got a
me.
good voice. You got listen, take it from me. You got a great voice for the shows and calling them. You and JJ, because I know I could never do that. That's obviously where I'm here and you're certainly there. But no seriousness. I mean, you guys really, and you have a phenomenal voice. I mean, the voice, it's
Thank
almost
you.
like very orator like. It's very like it's got that almost like in a way, it's not too overpowering, but it's almost like very narrator like as well.
Yeah, I do my best to try to not leave any like blank spaces or gaps. I just So it's improv skills is what it is. I have a long history of improv theater background, and I can just do that on the fly, come up with stuff like that off the fly. So it's real easy for me to kind of keep a flow going and make sure that people are still invested in the match.
I'm curious on this, and I've asked this before for different people that have made transitions, whether it was they were an athlete and went to commentary, or let's say they went from, let's say, something else into another field, or they were boxers that went into wrestling, like RPD last week, or just other people who've gone and made transitions. Now, you're staying obviously in this sport that we love so much, but
Mm-hmm.
how is the transition like, and how do you prepare? I mean, obviously, going into a match, it's, you prepare, I would imagine, very differently. But now preparing yourself each and every week to be on the call for all these XCW shows, and we've got just, again, a phenomenal amount of coverage here for XCW throughout the season. How do you prepare yourself for each and every week versus, let's say, when you were going out and competing?
Well, in all honesty, like the preparation work for commentary is a lot easier for me, especially since again, I faced half the people in the locker room, so I know their move sets and stuff. So,
And you probably
like,
know the other half anyway because you shared a locker room with them.
it's very true. Yes. We actually have like a moveset book that we try to read from. That if we forget a name of a move, it's there. But like I said, I've been in the ring with a lot of those guys so much that it's up here. So like I haven't been using that book. So yeah, it's real easy to prepare when you know everybody, and it's really not difficult at all. It's a lot more difficult to prepare for a match because you got to be mentally ready, you got to
Oh,
be
for sure.
physically ready.
I was speaking with somebody, and I'm actually gonna, do it here. Speaking with a
Okay.
lovely supporter of mine, the lovely Zena, and she was asking me a few days ago. This big wrestling fan, but most likely bigger fan of mine. But she was asking me, how do these wrestlers go out and prepare a match? Well, I said, well, usually what happens is you have to go out a few hours beforehand. You kind of have to plot things out. You have to sort of mentally kind of work the match up. Maybe if you're lucky, in some cases, maybe you kind of write some notes. You kind of compare and contrast, or if you've wrestled the other person maybe multiple occasions, or you've had kind of an experience of what they can kind of do in the ring, you kind of figure things out. But I think when it comes to commentary, because of the fact that you've squared off and wrestled so many of the different people in the locker room, it becomes almost second nature to kind of like call their moves and stuff. And I
Yeah.
guess maybe the one other follow-up, do you practice maybe your speaking, or maybe you practice kind of the move set or anything? Because I always thought the most difficult thing in wrestling, if you call a baseball game, it's okay. It's a curveball, it's a sinker, it's a fastball. If it's a football game, they talk about the 2-minute drill. Do they have to run the ball outside or inside? But with wrestling, you do have to kind of know the move set or the finishers of the different people that are out there in the ring. So do you have to memorize anything with that? I was always curious about that.
Um, move names are not that difficult to memorize for me usually. Like I said, I have a lot of them. I have most of them down at this point. So, but yeah, there's a lot of memorization that does
We're gonna
have
have
to
30
happen.
plus people on the roster. I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
35
absolutely.
wrestlers on the roster. So you do kind of have to remember all these things. And I think it Tony Schiavone, or it was somebody years ago that got in trouble. It might have even been actually Michael Cole. I think it was actually Michael Cole, and he got in trouble years ago because he was forgetting other wrestlers' finishing moves. So I was always kind of wondering. I never asked that throughout my 5-year career, and like I think that would kind of be one thing to kind of, because as you saw, I obviously butchered the real ones' names, and you basically pointed out at the beginning when they came out there. So I appreciate that very much. So I could only imagine if I was out there in the play-by-play, guys in the locker room would want to shred me if they don't want to shred me already. So I was just curious about that. That's all.
It's like I try not to make very many mistakes, and if I do, they will come up and tell me like later on. But like it's so few and far between for me because I'm so familiar with everybody that
Sure.
yeah, it kind of, if I do make a mistake, usually just flies under the radar.
Well,
I
you
definitely
haven't
don't
made
have.
many so far. I mean, I've been listening. I watch every XCW show because we obviously have exclusive coverage here on Sportswire Radio. And so far, it seems to me like you're doing a great job. And I think that I hope you stay permanently in the booth. I mean, do you want to continue this here throughout
Oh, yeah,
2024 next season?
absolutely. I'm having the time of my life in the commentary booth. Uh, basically screaming at the top of my lungs at some points at the matches. Hi, Michael Blackheart in the chat. I know that guy.
Yes, I
Uh,
know him too. I'll get to him. I'll get to him. I'll get to him.
but yeah, it's just been a lot of fun, and with the group of talent that we have in XCW, just I look forward to calling every single show just because I know how good our roster is, and every match is going to be amazing. So,
Oh, absolutely. I wholeheartedly endorse that 1000%. This roster here in XCW, I mean, like I said, I would even say that WWE and AEW may have, that's it, just as good a roster because of the amount of people we have on this roster. A lot of companies say, hey, and you know this better than anybody because you had the XAWA. People have a roster and they'll have like 6 people, 7 people, maybe 10 if they're lucky. And 4 of them are filler people who really can't do an arm drag or can't do a hip toss. In fact, I've even had British independent wrestlers come on this show and they actually got injured off a hip toss. I mean, that's how really the point is that in this roster, we have got top to bottom. I mean, it's really, I continue to say this and I will continue to say it till I no longer can and I'm dead in the grave. This is the gold standard for this sport here. And I want people to follow you when people eventually listen to this and watch this on all platforms for you. Eric Blackheart, that is Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Simple, straight to the point. Even I can remember. I can't even forget this one. It's Eric Blackheart. Make sure you support him. We're going to plug XCW's platforms here in a short second here. But I want to get to Michael because obviously his father-in-law we know is Mr. Festus Davis, a man that has refereed many of your matches. And he wants to say hello, Tom and Blackheart. And Michael's always messaging me on Facebook. He's always talking to me, always saying something nice. So I really appreciate Michael because I met you back in 2019 after the Money in the Bank match. You gave me one of my favorite Viewers' Choice Award moments. Now, Viewers' Choice Awards is coming up here. We're obviously going to see next week who wins. And you obviously had maybe the biggest win of them all, winning last year's Wrestler of the Year. So what are you looking forward to most this year in the Viewers' Choice Awards?
It's already filmed, so I know how it's going.
Well,
but
well, for knuckleheads like me, we weren't there, so we're gonna watch it next Thursday, 6:00.
That is correct. Next Thursday at 6 on XC Wrestling 1 on YouTube.
Yep.
I'm actually repping the Viewers' Choice Awards with this background here.
Because I noticed that. I did notice that actually. Yes, I did.
Well, all I can say is there's a lot of twists, turns, surprises, and possibly even a fight. So I would tune in.
A fight?
Possibly even a fight. So you might want to tune in next Thursday at 6 and watch the Viewers' Choice Awards because you never know what you might see.
A fight. I would think, it's the holidays. People are getting ready for the eggnog, the milk, Hanukkah season. They're getting ready for Kwanzaa, Three Kings, Festivus Day, whatever that is, And you're telling me that there could be a fight possibly?
There's always a fight at the Viewers' Choice Awards. It without fail, it always happens.
But I would think, obviously, with all the goodwill we've had this season, we've had all the different plots, twists, and turns. But people are now kind of getting ready for encounters. They're getting ready for the next steps in XCW. You're telling me that we're still going to have fights anyway?
Oh, of course. It will never stop. As long as there's a Viewers' Choice Awards, it will never stop. Well, there will always be a fight.
I will get to something real quick on the Viewers' Choice Awards this year, and I want to get to a couple of comments here. First, the lovely Xena wants to tell me that nothing is ever straight-laced in wrestling, and that's what makes it awesome. Yes, and that's why I'm the basically prime example of that, because I never do anything straight-laced, but that's here nor there. Michael wants to say, I do appreciate the small moment my family got in XCW Showtime Extreme King 2022. Best show, and for you, that's a special moment as well. We'll certainly get into that in a few minutes. But, I wanted to get to something real quick because obviously the last XCW talent I had on as a man that you know very well, Mr. Julian Void Jacobs, the former champion. Yes. He's, I guess, some people call him an EBW reject. Some people call him an EBW hopeful. Some people, I guess, like myself, are starting to like him and warm up to him. And that's why I'm going to actually, believe it or not, induct him into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame at some point in early 2024, but he had said here on the air, and we heard from management actually, and he had spoke a few things about it, that he's actually going to win an award this year. So, I mean, Julian Void Jacobs, can you confirm for us that he did win an award? Because we heard from management that he's going to win an award next week that we'll get a chance to watch on YouTube, which we'll be plugging shortly.
I can confirm that he does, but I'm not going to tell you which one. You'll have to
Don't
tune
tell
in
us
to
because
find out
it'll come
yourself,
right
of course.
back to me, and Mr. Fletcher will say, "Hey, I did hear something about that," and then he'll revoke all of Sportswire's ability to cover XCW. So we definitely don't want that.
Right.
Most important thing is
Most
not getting Mr.
important.
Fletcher wrong. But anything that from Mr. Jacobs that we should keep an eye on at the show? Did he at least dress nice? Did he talk about EBW? So
I don't remember if he talked about EBW, but there is a really funny moment between him and Eric Mason that I want you to watch out for.
well, Eric Mason's another guy we've had on this show here. Boy, that's
Mhm.
going to be an interesting moment because if you think about it, Julian and Eric are kind of different but similar in some ways. So
I've always thought they need to be in a tag team together. I think them two would be a phenomenal tag team.
Yeah, I mean, because I think about maybe the personalities are slightly different, but what they could do as a big men team would be really, really
Yes.
cool. I think obviously Julian's going down the route with Mitchell Maverick, and they're trying to
Right.
impress Mr. Blaze and Mr. Jones. And it seems to me as if it's to be continued with them
Right.
against obviously the real ones and Mr. Slater and Mr. Parsley. I'm obviously going to ask you about Mr. Parsley in a little while, but Mr. Blackheart wants to say here that my daughter was clapping for Hayden Bex. The shock was perfect. You calling it the book of 3 chapters was absolutely perfect. I guess then coming back to the current season, as we know, we ended it that Hayden Vex is the next man in line to potentially take away the title from a man maybe better than anybody in Mr. ACT, and quite an up and down roller coaster history you have had with him. But Hayden Vex is the last person you wrestled in your career. You have had a history with him going back to the XAWA, and certainly a big win for EBW, which certainly gives, I think, EBW back some momentum they lost in a number of different ways, certainly with Miano Diaz losing the EBW title and obviously the XCW title from Brady Branson, them losing it. So what's your thoughts then on Hayden Vex, and does EBW now have gained back some of the momentum that they lost over the past several weeks?
I will say that Hayden's probably going to be the one who gives ACT his best challenge out of everybody in the EBW stable. There is nobody, in my opinion, there's very few people in that ring that can hold a candle to Hayden Vex in terms of in-ring ability, mic ability. I can count them on like one hand how many people are just as good as him in the ring. And he and ACT are going to have an absolute banger match at New Year's Nemesis on January 1st. And I look forward to everybody getting to watch that one because I think that one's going to be an amazing match.
Let me ask you a question on that. Obviously, ACT wins the title in emotional fashion. We had him here on the show a few months back in the middle of his feud with Corey Lee, and certainly there was a lot of emotions there. He was a fan of XCW, got involved in it, and certainly is really, it's really a true turnaround. When you were feuding with him at one point, he was maybe the most despised person maybe in this sport to now he's really somebody that the fans in the galaxy here really, they believe in him. It's really a dramatic turnaround. I don't know if there's ever been a dramatic turnaround in somebody that was so despised to now being so beloved maybe ever in this sport. That shows you kind of how far he's come along and how much the XCW fans in the galaxy here believe in him. But do you think, in a way, as crazy as this sounds, that maybe ACT could overlook Hayden Vex and what he could do here? Is that a crazy thought for me to say coming up?
I think it's unlikely that he'll overlook Hayden Vex. He knows better, just about as well as anybody back there, that how good Hayden is in the ring and how easily Hayden could take him out 1, 2, 3. I don't think ACT is overlooking Hayden Vex. I think he's focusing on Hayden Vex. And that's what you need to do, because if you don't focus on him, you're already lost, quite frankly.
Fair. That's certainly fair point here. And I have another Michael comment I'll get to in a second. But, talking about that here, and I want to also talk about the fact that Venom has been basically forced to step down as general manager. And I would think here it's twofold. And tell me your thoughts on this, because obviously you've been in this spot. You've been the champion. You've obviously also ran a promotion. So you know how this goes from a number of different facets. I think right now a lot of pressure is on ACT. And I think conversely, there's a lot of pressure on EBW because we saw what happened with Venom. We saw that basically because of his decisions or lack of decisions, that a lot of people in the locker room, Brogan O'Shea was on here. Basically, he was really vehemently, publicly, very public about basically dismissing Venom's leadership. I mean, listen, Corey Lee, no fan of XCW, was basically criticizing Venom. So I would think a lot of pressure is on ACT right now to keep this title in XCW's fold, but also conversely with EBW. EBW wins here. They win this title back on New Year's Day at New Year's Nemesis. That all of a sudden now EBW to me is back to where they were. And if they lose here, though, it's almost like, well, do we take EBW seriously? Because we've already had people here on this show basically saying, well, EBW is a shell of itself. EBW is half of what it was in the prior incarnation. So what do you think on kind of the twofold pressure on both sides here?
Yeah, absolutely. ACT has an enormous amount of pressure on him to try to keep the XCW championship in the XCW camp. As far as taking EBW seriously, if they were to lose to ACT, I mean, ACT hasn't beaten everybody in that stable yet, so I'm pretty sure you could still take them seriously as a threat. Personally, a dream for me would be to see ACT and Chris Jones. I don't know if that.
I knew you would go.
I would never. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but that would be a dream match.
Well, I mean, a lot of people want a shot at Chris Jones for obvious reasons because he is the GOAT here in this sport. This man has been out there, even though he has retired, he's still back. I mean, it's, obviously a really, really fascinating story. Obviously 4 decades in this sport. So obviously those are things that we'll certainly talk about in a second. But if you do want to follow XCW, I'd like people to follow XCW on a number of platforms here. I have XCW All Access on YouTube, XCW Shelbyville, XC Wrestling 1 on YouTube, XCW_Shelbyville on Instagram, Twitter, XC Wrestling 1, Facebook, XCW Shelbyville, and also the xcwrestling1.wixsite.com /Shelbyville website, where you can find out all things related to XCW plus much, much more. So please support this company. This is the gold standard in this sport. I could not stress that enough. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, and the owner of Sportswire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us here on Sportswire Radio, I'd hope you follow us here on YouTube, where you can watch past, present, and future XCW shows. And I also want to make the announcement here that XCW shows that are on Sportswire, you're going to be able to, in the coming weeks, also watch it on the XCW platforms, because we have certainly allowed, of course, management, well, most notably Mr. Fletcher, to allow Sportswire shows that covered XCW to be on his platforms that you see here below. So I want to thank Mr. Fletcher for granting us that opportunity. Of course, anything we can do to XCW to help and grow the company, we're always here for that. And if you also want to listen to us here, we have an internet radio station, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And if you have a podcast out there like Fletch and certainly Mr. AKA Jones, AKA somebody else you might know as our champion, they have a show called The Giving Receipt Show. We play it here live throughout the day. In fact, before I came on, I was listening to Fletch and Jaden. I was listening to them talk about all things related to non-XCW wrestling stuff. So if you have a podcast out there, if you want to play some music, if you want to have your own chance to get to a broader audience, we can do that here on our internet radio station. Also, we have a brand new blog where we write press releases, statements, kind of going back to my political days, tumblr.com /Sportswire Radio. And we will have more coverage here when it comes to the world of wrestling, Friday afternoon, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, with Jimmy Controversy. Jimmy Controversy is a guy who creates a lot of controversy, kind of like that Madonna song, Creating Controversy. That was an old Madonna song way back in the day, but Blackheart, Madonna, but at least you have Eric, not just Blackheart. But the point is that he creates a lot of controversy because he is here at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Maybe one day a guy would be great for XCW, but Jimmy's going to be here on all platforms. I'm really looking forward to sharing Jimmy's story here and more. But we are here with Mr. Blackheart himself to talk all things related here to XCW. All right, so let's come back to some of the current things before I ask you about some more things in your decorated careers. I want to go back to Venom for a second. I know obviously you have to be objective, you can't be biased, but was it fair for the board of directors to remove Venom in his role as general manager? Because there was a lot of fingers being pointed in this locker room. Jay Ellis in the past at one point was certainly pointing fingers. Brogan O'Shea might have been really, Irish-like in terms of his venom and his, certainly his Irish-like wrath in terms of what he felt Corey Lee was here. And, you even had, again, EBW was kind of, almost thumbing their fingers in the eyes of Venom and such. And was it fair for the board of directors to remove Venom as the general manager, in your opinion?
I'll be honest, I don't know if removing him was the right solution, but I guess we'll see how that pans out in the coming months.
Sure.
Honestly, he made one little mistake, and it ballooned out of proportion into the EBW faction that you see before you on XCW screens now.
Sure.
Should he be reprimanded for making that mistake? Sure. Should he be removed from his post? I don't know. I don't know if that was the right call or not.
But you know this because you've been a wrestler, you've been a top guy, and you've also been a promoter. I mean, when you don't have the confidence in the locker room, it's almost like in football when the owner comes out and says, well, we're giving you the vote of confidence. And the vote of confidence really means that you're probably going to be shown out the door. And in this case, conversely, a lot of people on the XCW end did not have that confidence in Venom. I mean, it's kind of hard, I would think, though, to continue to do your job if you don't have the trust in that locker room. You've been there before. You know what it's like.
Right.
So what do you think about that, though?
I can certainly understand where people like Brogan, O'Shea, and Jay Ellis are coming from. But when you're running a locker room and people have literally come up to you and told you that they have no confidence in you, it does rattle you a lot. It does shake you a little bit, and it does make it a little bit hard to, when every decision that you're making in your mind, you're double thinking it, because is this going to be the right thing? Are people going to be even more mad at me if I do it this way? Or if I don't do something, are people going to be mad? You're constantly double checking yourself. So yeah, I can understand where people are coming from, but yeah, it's really hard to do your job when nobody has the confidence in you.
Because I feel like Venom, we know his background. We know what he's done in this sport. And I think maybe, was it Brogan that might have said this on one of the XCW shows, that was like, you're Venom. You're supposed to be this monster, this authoritarian person. And that's why you were put in the post. And I never felt like these last 3 or 4 months watching XCW shows that we really saw that.
Not really. Yeah, no. No, yeah, he's been kind of reserved, kind of taking a back seat to most of the proceedings. The only time we really saw him got like really involved was at Hit the Lights in that big 8-man tag team match that happened there. And he took the loss in that to of all people, Luke Blaze. So, he was probably rattled going into that, I'll be honest. Yeah, he's been very reserved. He's been, I hate to say it, almost a shell of himself.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I've kind of seen throughout the season, all the missteps and all kind of, we've seen EBW just waltz in here and they've kind of really still, even though they've lost some of the gold, they're still in a position that is certainly, if Hayden reclaims the world title from ACT, that EBW is back and they're basically running roughshod over XCW. And Chris Jones was here basically. He was here basically saying like, look, they're here basically to run XCW and they'll rename it if they have to. I mean, they basically want to put XCW into the ground. And let me ask you a follow-up on that, because we saw obviously Fletch talk about the fact that he's no longer on the board of directors, but maybe he could go to the board and kind of fight for Venom. Do you think that's the right move, that Fletch should go out there and fight for Venom to keep his job? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's completely the right move, especially with Fletch having known Venom for such a long time. It just makes sense to go to bat for your friends. But I think fighting for him is the right move. And I really hope that Fletch makes some headway by the time we swing back into the full season in March, and maybe even by Cold Day. I don't know.
Okay, so basically, I guess we'll have to stay tuned for that. Okay, fair enough then. So obviously, we spoke a lot about that. I want to come back to the current storylines for sure. But, you also actually have a huge hand in everything that we see on XCW in terms of the editing which is the gold standard. So may I ask you about some of your editing prowess, especially for those in the galaxy that may or may not know this?
Yeah, some of you might just be finding this out for the first time. I edit. I am the editor of the main shows. All the main shows, not and Showtime, which is also my
Sure.
baby. I
Yep.
edit that as well. And I will. I believe I will be editing Encounters as well when we get it filmed.
Well, I've heard
So,
some big things about episode 1. I have heard through the
oh,
grapevine there's a big main event that certainly I may have a little stake in that one. So I've
I
heard through the
cannot
grapevine.
wait for that. I cannot
Oh
wait.
man, and that's going to be right after the Viewers Choice Awards. So obviously, you've got Mental Lab Studios. I mean, what has that been like? And how did you get into that world? If you don't mind me asking, you've obviously been a promoter, you've been a wrestler, you're a
Yes.
commentator. I mean, what don't you do, sir? Is there anything that I like? What don't you do?
I don't dance very well. Uh,
I got two left feet. I mean, I'm sure one day my lovely little female friend will certainly be seeing that firsthand in a matter of months. But I got two left feet. That's why I'm
That's
here.
fair. Yeah, but so do I. Um, but in terms of editing, I've been doing it for, oh my God, as long as I remember. Like 2006 is really when I started
Oh wow.
editing. So I've been doing it for a long time, including like all of my I've edited every XAWA event that we ever did. I started doing XCW main shows in 2020, so I've been doing that for several years now. Um, I love video editing. It's
I
a
always thought
passion
that
of
was
mine. Yeah.
difficult to do because I actually know how to do audio editing because we have the internet radio station. So I know how to convert. I know how to cut the audio.
Mm.
I learned that. But for whatever reason, I never got the video editing. The audio editing, I took a class on audio editing. This had to have been maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was just starting into podcasting. But now I've obviously gone to the live video. And I took a class and I learned to do the audio. And it was like I got it like snap, crackle, and pop with video. I just never got for whatever reason.
It is difficult at first, but obviously when you've been doing it for as long as I have it, it's second nature. It's at the point. But yeah, it is. It's not easy. There's a lot you got to know when you're getting ready to edit your very first video. You got to know. You got to have timing down. You got to have audio levels down. You got to know what transitions to put where. Graphics. It's a difficult process, but it's one that I really enjoy doing. And I love watching the finished product afterwards. Once I can't wait for people to see the finished product once I'm done with it.
And I gotta say, and I want to say this, if you don't mind me saying this on the air, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio, your voice of wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryce, your editing and the XCW, just the graphics, the visuals. I mean, it's really, and I'm not just saying it because you're on here, and I'm not just saying it because obviously Sportswire loves working with XCW. It really is, I would dare say, right up there with what we see in AEW, WWE, Impact, MLW, NW, whatever you want to thought that. Because really, like, I feel like when I'm watching XCW, I feel like I'm watching Monday Night Raw. I mean, it's really that good in terms of the visuals. I really want to say that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's so much fun to be able to do that. And to have Fletch give me the reins for the editing, because he was doing it before I was. To have him give me the reins for the
about
editing.
that when he was on the show. He spoke about the fact that basically it was like so time consuming, and that's obviously where you came in and some other people that, I'm not going to say their names, but they were doing some of the editing work. And, I could just only imagine it's so difficult. And I want to go back to what I said, because I do watch a lot of these different companies and other places, and, we love them on sports. I really want to make sure I emphasize that. But with XCW, the editing work, I mean, it really is, and I'll continue to say it, it's cliche, the gold standard. Because of when I watch these shows and I watch the graphics, I watch the footage, I watch the banners, I watch all the different things, it really is, to me, you guys are ahead of the game, really, because of your work, sir.
Again, I really appreciate that. It is time consuming. Yeah, it does take a lot of time to do what I do. sometimes really at this point it just depends on the free time that I have at this
I
point.
was gonna say,
But
like between everything you do, I mean, you do like 40 different things, and Mr. Fletcher, I know, is a busy man as well. But
yes,
I mean, it's got to be a lot though, because obviously, it was one thing you were a wrestler, one thing you were a commentator, and then you do this editing stuff. I mean, it's really like I don't know how you guys do it. I got to be honest, because I know for me, it's like it's one thing to do this, and I'm on a radio station Wednesday nights 9 o'clock, and it's a lot for that, and I do other things with the internet radio. But you guys, like, video editing is not like an hour. It takes like a long time to
oh
do, because
yeah,
it's not easy.
it's not easy. Case in point, final chapter probably took me about 6-7 hours to get completely done.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes a lot, and that's a short show. So you can imagine how long it would take something like a Summer
I
Mania.
was gonna say Summer Mania was like a mania. You were talking about twice the length of Final Chapter. Final Chapter's
Yes,
an hour and 45 minutes. Summer
yes,
Mania was like almost 4 hours. Plus, you guys
right.
had post show. You had that whole press
Yep,
conference.
post show, pre-show, and also, and let's not forget, video packages,
Yep.
which had to be made before the show. So, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it sometimes, but it's to see the fruits of your labor on the screen, to have people watch it and compliment it. It's worth it in the end to be able to invest that kind of time into it.
I'm gonna make you chuckle. I always love when XCW shows open up and go, "We are one, we are one." And all the wrestlers come out in that little, like, almost like that open mall kind of like video. That I always love when I see everybody come out there. And
Yeah.
I just love
That's
that.
downtown Shelbyville, actually. That's
Oh,
the
wow.
public square in Shelbyville is where we
I
filmed all
hope
that.
I get to go to downtown Shelbyville one day, because I love that. I mean, obviously coming here from New York, I'm always wondering, what is that from? I'm always wondering. I see every the wrestlers come out and they're like, "We are one, we are one." It's like I just love that. I got to be honest. I really I get hyped for an XCW show. Some shows,
Those
they just talk about that, talk
Yeah,
about it.
those are really, those live action intros is what we call them. Those are really cool to do. And this year we had something really special because we had a guy come in with a drone to be able to film
Oh,
some of
wow.
those.
Okay.
So yeah, we really went all out for this live action intro. And if any for stalwart viewers of XCW will notice they change every once in a while. So we filmed a bunch. So the
Wow.
intro does change every once in a while, depending on like who's still in the company. Sometimes we have to go out and film new ones if somebody joins the company. But we try to keep it as up to date as possible. And like just about every show has had a different one this year at some point or another.
Yeah, I
So
have noticed it. And obviously, we're here talking with Mr. Eric Blackheart himself. Eric is doing a phenomenal job. He is on the call here for all of the XCW shows here. We're going to see, obviously, XCW's Viewer's Choice Awards here next Thursday. That'll be here next Thursday, 6 o'clock, and right after Encounters chapter. We also have Clash at the Christmas. We also have New Year's Nemesis. So those are back-to-back shows on the 25th, Christmas and New Year's Day. Stay tuned for all XCW socials on that. Also follow Blackheart on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Eric Blackheart with a K, not a C. So make sure it's simple, straight, and to the point. But yes, absolutely. And Michael also wants to say the first live Blackheart match was Heart of the Storm versus Freedom Fighters when Evan Phoenix turned. All right, so what? I guess I should ask you. I should ask you a little bit about your career, because I could ask you 1,000 questions. I realize that, so I have to obviously think about these things. So I have to ask you that in terms of your career, now that it's ended, how do you feel about your XCW career overall now that it's ended?
I'll be honest, the XCW career I was lucky to have it because, quite frankly, I was thinking about hanging it up in 2020. Now, in XCWA, obviously, we didn't have a ring; it was on ground, and doing that for 20 years kind of takes a toll on your
Oh,
body.
for sure, for sure.
So, I give credit to XCW for giving me a couple more years, being able to wrestle in a ring, do a style that's a little bit more comfortable and not so taxing on my body, has lengthened my career in ring. So I appreciated that. In terms of how it went, I don't think I could have asked for a better final few years of my career. I said to Fletch when I came to XCW that I wanted to end my career in the XCW ring, and that's exactly what I got. So,
was there anything that you would have liked to have done more in XCW? Do you ever look back and say, "Hey, I got 5 years in XCW. But maybe I wish I would have came here prior to, because obviously Mr. Parsley, we're well aware of the fact that he and Fletch, they basically had no relationship, and only we've seen Parsley very recently in XCW in the last year or two. But I had asked him this question. I'm like, well, did you ever have the what ifs? Did you ever wonder when you're going away from the sport and you're seeing all these people you grew up with, contemporaries like a Chris Jones, for example, Corey Lee's your cousin. Do you ever wish you would have been in XCW sooner? And I kind of ask you the same question. Do you ever think of a what if you could have been here in XCW earlier?
That certainly has always been a question in the back of my mind. What if I had been in the ring at the same time as a Chris Jones? He's top of the people that I would have loved to face that I've never had the chance to face. And I still think it could happen, but it's very unlikely at this point with both of us on the twilights of our careers at this point. Would I love to see it happen? Absolutely. But I don't see it ever happening. There's a couple other people on the roster that I never got the chance to really work with that I would have loved to have worked with. If I'd have gotten to XCW sooner, I might have had a few more years because it wouldn't have been so hard on my body. I would have loved to share in a ring with somebody like an Aaron Blaze.
Aaron Blaze is a guy that I guess is another one of these traveling men, you might want to say, wrestles in different places, but has made a home for himself in XCW. He's now become one of the guys one of the leading guys right now in the XCW locker room. I mean, he's the guy. We saw him in Summer Mania, and he's really been leading the charge in this fight against EBW. And, you and Aaron Blaze would have been a dream match. I mean, that would have been a great match to watch.
Absolutely. I would have loved to have worked with him, even whether tagging with him or wrestling him in the ring. I think it would have been fantastic to work with Aaron Blaze. And there's a few people like that in XCW that I wish I'd have had a longer program. I wish I'd have had more ring time with Hunter Halkin.
Hunter's the guy I think everybody speaks about here on the show. That's the guy that you have to pay attention to most is Hunter Halkin.
Absolutely.
People tell me in the locker room and on the air, off the air, that he's the guy I need to pay attention to most. Why is that?
Just because he's so good at what he does. Earlier I said there's only a handful of people I could count on the same level as Hayden Vex in the ring. Hunter Halkin is one of those. He is absolutely a top-tier talent. He has learned from the best. He has been in that ring. He's absolutely top of his game. He is one of the best in-ring workers I have ever had the pleasure of seeing in the ring and being in the ring with. And he is also a tremendous mic talent as well. He is great on promos. He is great on mic work. He is absolutely a future XCW champion. I'm going to say it right now. He is definitely going to be a future XCW champion. I feel it.
So you're basically telling us then that, what happened with him and Leon Lux, he's going to get over that and have a huge 2024 is what you're
I really think so. As soon as he gets past Leon Lux. Because that's still got to be in the back of his head.
What do you make of that, though, for a second? Leon Lux has come in here and, he's the international champion. I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens with him. And Tommy Merriman's back. I mean, if you would have asked me Tommy Merriman would be back, I would have said, who told you that? I mean, but now we see that. I mean, what do you make of Leon Lux? And now, I guess, as a side point, Tommy Merriman being
right.
back.
Well, if you'd asked me, do you see Tommy Merriman being back? I would have been like, hey, what year is this?
I was going to say that exactly. I don't want to say from who, where, when, and what, and why, and how, but I was kind of like, I saw that, and I'm like, wait a minute, what?
I always, as much as we rag on him, I always enjoy Tommy Merriman getting back in the ring. Sure. He's always been a top-tier talent.
Absolutely.
And I enjoy his matches. And case in point, he's got a match coming up at Clash on Christmas with Leon Lux, and it's going to be tremendous. There's no way around it. Those two talents in the ring, Leon Lux has come a long way too. He used to be in XCW a long time ago as Billy Supernova.
Yep.
And to see him make his comeback and win the international title, his very first championship in XCW, has been a real Cinderella story. Whether you love him or you hate him, Leon Lux has got the eyes of the galaxy on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I brought it up, because Leon Lux is one of the more unlikely champions we have in this sport. You look at some of the different champions, James Cerebral and the Hardcore. Okay, that makes sense. Brogan O'Shea, he's been obviously a champion in different ways. Okay, that makes sense. Certainly, Parsley and Slater, maybe that does make more sense than people think, especially with Parsley's persona, their relationship. Certainly, ACT, we spoke a lot about him chasing the world title, but then there's Leon Lux. It's kind of like really one of the more, I guess, unlikely ones. And then you have Eric Mason back with the New Age title. I think Eric Mason is a superstar in waiting, but Leon Lux
Absolutely.
is kind of like what? Almost that's kind of the way I think the Galaxy looks at it right now.
Yeah, he's really out of left field, but honestly, if you watch his matches, you can see that he has the tools to become something big in XCW. He's already proven it by becoming the international champion. He's again another tremendous in-ring talent. I would again say on the level of Hayden Vex. He has the tools to get it done, and he has the tools to be even bigger now, maybe soon than he is now. So.
Well, we'll certainly find out, and obviously
Yeah.
want people to follow XCW again on all platforms out there as we're hanging out. Certainly with Mr. Blackheart himself, a man who does a phenomenal job with all things related to calling the action for XCW. So then, obviously, coming back to your career, I have to ask you the obvious question. You were a world champion last year. You win the title. You lose it earlier in the very beginning of the year, but you're the world champion, and it took you a while to get there. You certainly went through a lot. Obviously, the international title, you held that whole thing with ACT. But, for your career, and I always ask the obvious question to people that finally get to the top, what did it mean to you to be the XCW world champion?
It was a career-defining moment for me. It was definitely, to me, that said they had enough confidence in me to put me in that position, and I will never not appreciate that. It meant just about everything to me. To be one of the only people in that organization that held the XCW title and the XAWA World Heavyweight title, the other one being Hayden Vex, means a lot. For somebody who'd been doing it for that long, and was at the tail end of his career, like I was at that point, and still put my body through all sorts of hell. Like, I had some hardcore matches with Brandon Hobbs that put my body through
You
hell.
had barbed wire matches. You had some really
Absolutely.
extreme.
Yes.
You really I guess maybe you could be like Jimmy Controversy, and you really had some really really tough matches out there that you put
I
your body
did.
twice full through somebody else almost.
And even losing the title to Brady Branson at Cold Day this past year, that was another barbed wire table match. I put my body through a lot of hell, and to see it get recognized, the work that I put in, and the amount of effort that I put in, is just everything. It was an amazing feeling to finally be able to hold that XCW championship.
No question about it. And then obviously going into kind of transitioning, winning the Extreme King, what was that like for you?
That was it was crazy. My performance in the Extreme King match wasn't all that great, I'll be honest. Most of it I spent in the corner, sucking wind, because I had wrestled a match prior to that, the barbed wire table match with Brandon Hobbs earlier in the night. So I was kind of tired. But actually winning the match was a great feeling. Being able to do that, and I dedicated that match win to Kurt Acid as well, because because last year was the year we lost him.
Yep.
So to be able to go out there and tear
3 months
through
prior too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
right?
actually, yeah, about 3 months prior to that, we lost him. So to be able to go out there and do that, and because Kurt Acid was a big fan of Battle Royals. He loved Battle Royal style matches, and he loved Extreme King. And to be able to go out there and win one,
that was his baby. We spoke about this with Fletch and Justin, and that was kind of that was his baby. You think about XCW, that was kind of Extreme King was his. That was his football almost.
Yes, and to be able to go out there and win that, in that like that, and be able to do that so soon after his passing was just it's hard to put the feelings into words.
What did Kurt Acid mean to you overall then?
He was I didn't know him as long as some of the people in the XCW
Oh, I
locker room,
know. I
but
mean, we had Corey on and Justin and Chris and Fletch and these guys.
but
Go ahead.
right. But in the short amount of time that I got to know Benji, he was always a lot of fun to hang out with. He was always extremely uplifting, extremely what's the word I'm looking for here? He's supportive. That's the word. So extremely supportive of everybody. Extremely always had advice to give, and he was always a lot of fun. He just to talk with about wrestling in general. It was always a lot of fun with. So even though I didn't know him as long as a lot of the XCW guys, losing him in 2022 still hit me incredibly hard because it felt like I was losing a brother almost.
I always felt that one of the things is we're talking here with Blackheart, who's the play-by-play man for XCW, and again, all things related to XCW, you can follow XCW on their socials below. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportzwire Radio. We're hanging out for about 30 or 35 more minutes here with Mr. Blackheart. Obviously, we're so thankful for his time and giving us the opportunity to speak with him in his decorated career. One of the things was some of the most important things, or things you don't see in the ring. It's being able to kind of almost, I guess, hang out with the guys and gals and being able to kind of, talk about what's going on or what do you see out there and just kind of conversing, chit chatting. We were speaking yesterday on the show about guys in another company called Dominant Breakout Wrestling, and they were talking about card playing. They would go sit out there and be in the locker room for a few hours before a show, and they would go play cards with each other. It was a way kind of that they bonded. And I always felt like that was some of the most important things, was being able to bond with your peers in the locker room. And was that important for you also, being in an XCW locker room where the company has grown so much and you got a chance to kind of be a part of a company that has become so special and so synonymous in this sport? I mean, was that something you got to do a lot these last few years now that you were in XCW?
Absolutely. It's one of the things I look forward to the most when I come down because I make the hour and a half drive every other Saturday to do these shows. And the reason I keep doing that hour and a half long drive is just because a lot of that is the people involved. I've come to be friends with a lot of them. I've bonded with a lot of them, and bonding with the XAW guys happened very early on. Like when I came in as part of XAWA in 2018 to do tri-brand shows with them, it was almost instant. Like I walked into that locker room saying, "Hey, these guys, they do what we do. They know what we know. We're friends. Like there's no doubt about it. Like they've experienced the same ups and downs that we have. So who knows better than people in our position." So bonding was extremely. It took extremely quick, and I could not be happier with the bond that I formed with the guys backstage in XCW.
I could certainly see that, and that's why the XCW, I think the product is as strong as it is. And I have to ask
Yep.
you then, conversely, Hayden Vex was your last opponent. You had such a history with Hayden Vex. I mean, what made him maybe such a great opponent for you throughout your career in the XAWA and certainly in XCW?
What made him a great opponent for me personally was that we knew each other. We know each other like the back of our hands. He came into XAWA in 2012, and it instantly I knew instantly then he was going to be something big. And we always bonded over professional wrestling. We would sit every month and watch WWE programming, WWE pay-per-views, and talk about them. And we've just been friends for a long time. And we also have had a rivalry on camera that has stretched over the course of that length of time as well. And so it just made sense for him to be my last opponent. But I don't think I could have picked any better of an opponent for me for my last match, because we've known each other for a long time. We know how each other operates. A lot of people, when they get into the ring with an opponent, they like to call spots. They like to call moves.
Sure.
They like to play and stuff. Hayden and I don't have to do that because we know each other. We know each other so well that we don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
And that's what I felt in watching the last match of SummerMania and also kind of seeing the history between you guys is that, some guys, again, going back to what my lovely female friend had said, well, how do wrestlers, they come up with a match? And I was trying to tell her without not telling her that, some guys have to go in like hours before a show and they have to sit there and they have to kind of like, it's not like being WWE. WWE, they can go out and, wrestle on a house show circuit for weeks and kind of, they know who they're going to work against. But here it's a little different. So you have to kind of work conceptually a match far different than what you see on TV. So I think the fact that you guys kind of fed off each other, kind of had that yin and yang, showed why he was such a great opponent for you. And then I have to obviously ask you about it. If I don't ask you about it, I'd almost be not doing my job here in Sportswire.
Right.
You're obviously famous or infamous feud, Mr. ACT. I mean, the personal stuff that was thrown out there between, your mother's ashes and, some of the things he did with that. And then obviously, you being handcuffed while he was beating up on Trinity and then what happened with Trinity. I mean, I had Trinity on a few months ago and she spoke a little bit about that. But, what was it like for you, with that whole thing with ACT back in 2021? It's probably one of the more synonymous feuds in recent memory in XCW. And, what was that like? And, to where we are now, where it's totally like, again, it's totally come around 360 with, ACT and the Galaxy. But for you and kind of that feud you had with ACT in 2021, where it blurred the line. I mean, it really, like, to me, to this day in this sport, it might be the most controversial feuds maybe in XCW history.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time, honestly, I was more wrestling brain at the time, so I didn't really think a whole lot of it. But looking back, I can honestly say that was probably one of the most controversial storylines I've ever been a part of. And Inside Baseball, I filmed that promo that he did with my mom's ashes.
I did. Yeah, you said that on. I think in the documentary was at the Somewhere in Time. I think you said that. Yeah, which I was like,
did.
When I heard that, I'm like, I got to talk about this feud with ACT. That's what goes anyway. But I was because I've gotten to know ACT a little bit because obviously Fletch and him have the podcast on my radio station.
Right.
But I was wondering, like, wow, that's got to be almost like, you're almost watching yourself be killed in a way.
A little bit. But in all honesty, I would not have allowed him to do anything I wasn't comfortable with. And I know what makes a good heel, and I know what makes a good feud. So it just made sense. It just made sense to allow him to blur the line like that and maybe to cross it a little bit. It was a great way to get heat. It still is.
I mean, but even for you, like on a personal level, you were in a relationship with Trinity, then you were in another relationship with someone else, and then you had to basically explain this situation. So it's almost like that's got to be tough in a sense. I mean, it's got to be like, know.
It is tough. Most of the time that discussion ends with, well, it's wrestling,
I guess it was almost in a way kind of like that Matt Hardy Edge Lita thing.
Absolutely,
It kind of reminded me of that rawness, that emotion.
Yes.
I think that's the only thing I could maybe compare it to, and that's how personal it was there, with ACT and you, and and you ever look back and say, maybe we shouldn't have did that? I mean, you spoke about what happened to you afterwards. You had some other issues. I don't want to get into them here and there because you've done so many great things in the current moment. I don't want to make this about, memory lane, but I mean, a lot went down there. I mean, do you ever say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have did that or did it differently? You ever look back?
There were probably aspects that we should have done differently, but honestly, I don't think I would change too much about that feud. I don't think that feud could have been any better than it was. Like, I think it was just perfect the way it was. I don't think there's anything that you really could change. Maybe some minuscule things, but like, honestly, if we had the chance, we could do the same feud again.
Well, I think right now, I mean, like I said before, he's our XCW champion.
Yes.
And again, he's completely had a 360. One of, I think, to me, the most dramatic, I guess, role of reversals in the Galaxy, where he was so despised in this spot 2.5 years ago to now where he really, people believe in him. He came on here and you would think a Harvard man that's become believable to the Galaxy, and he's done that. So you got to give him a lot of credit. That's why he's our man here in XCW. And I wanted to come back, obviously, for the remaining show to ask you a little bit about the XAWA. And,
Sure.
what was that experience? Because I have to ask, because on Facebook I saw you had posted the pictures of the belts. You couldn't find the world title belt. I was like, I gotta talk about the XAWA. I wasn't not going to talk about it anyway, but I'm like, I have to bring it up here. So I mean, the XAWA, and talk about that experience and just running the company, and then finding these belts here. I mean, you have to talk about first here for the audience, the XAWA.
So the XAWA, for those of you who are unaware, started as a merger between two companies in 2011, one with the AWA and one the XWA. The AWA started in 2002 when I started my career. The XWA started in 1999. The merger officially happened in 2011. I wasn't a part of the roster at that point. I was living in Austin, Texas at that point in time. I returned in 2012, and myself and the owner at the time, Cyrus Safinon Mason, XCW viewers may have seen him on a few of those shows.
Yep.
We were the owners of the company. He gave me 50% ownership when I returned from Texas, and we basically ran it from 2012 to 2014, and then again from 2018 to 2020. There was a little break there where we didn't do shows. But being in charge of an entire organization is a tough thing. It's not easy. There's so much that you have to, and I was doing 90% of the work. Like it's really tough to run an organization. I don't envy Fletch because I've been in his position,
and he's got 30 people, 30 competing mounts.
Yes,
that basically they feel they want to win every time. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to lose.
And yeah, we only had 8 people tops, and most of them were just us.
He's got 30 plus. He's got weekly shows.
Yeah.
He's got the Galaxy to contend with. I mean, Fletch's job is like Vince McMahon. I don't know how Fletch sleeps these days. And he's got the misses. He's got Jacoby. I mean, Jacoby's got the JWF. The JWF, some people say, is more popular than XCW. And Jacoby's going to be wrestling Justin Parsley tomorrow. I mean, I don't know how Fletch, how this man sleeps, honestly.
As somebody who's gone through what he does, I can tell you he doesn't much. He spends a lot of his time working on XCW when he's not doing his day job, when he's not, he doesn't hardly even have family time anymore. He really just works on XCW, and he really loses sleep for XCW, which he doesn't have to do that, and he knows that, but he does it anyway because he has a passion for XCW, and he wants to see it succeed, just like all of us do. So
I understand. Listen, with Sportswire, I've been doing this 5 years. People ask me all the time. As I have a career in politics. People ask me, well, why do you still do this for? Why do you still do it? I'm like, well, because I believe in it. There's a lot of people out there that they really, they enjoy my content. I have podcasts. I have an internet radio dial, so I completely sympathize with that. But also, that's why Fletch, by the way, I'm glad you brought up Fletch, because I have an announcement for Fletch, because Fletch is coming back to Sportswire Radio on December the 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And in fact, Fletch is coming back to Sportswire Radio to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. You've heard it here first. There is no more deserving man than Mr. Fletch. Everything that he has done for this sport, for what he has done for XCW, establishing it as the gold standard, everything that he has done to give so many people an opportunity to shine in this sport, the people that he has given to where they have gone on and even had pro wrestling careers. Fletch really has gone above and beyond his means for giving people a chance to live out their dreams. That's why I could not think of a better person to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And as I always say, which Fletch has repeated here on Sportswire Radio, he's also repeated it here on XCW TV when it comes to talking about us here. This is an endorsement that is certainly earned. It is not given. Endorsements are not earned, they are given. This one to me is definitely one that is well deserving. It is well earned. I don't just give endorsements away. Fletch is one of the most deserving people in this sport to be recognized. That's why I want to induct him into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, December the 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Sportswire Radio YouTube page, also on sportswireradio.org, also XCW social medias. Please go out there and follow Fletch. And I want to thank Fletch for everything that he has done. And again, I really say this one more thing on Fletch is that, all these people in all these places, and if you don't mind, I'm going to blur the line here. These companies in Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan, Iowa, Connecticut now, Maryland, all these different places, right? That they have companies, Georgia, throw them out there, Florida, all these places, New Mexico now, and North Dakota, all these places that they have companies and they've come on to Sportswire. Well, I got news. There would not be companies in Alabama, that company in Tennessee, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Connecticut, anywhere else in the United States if it wasn't for what Joshua Fletcher has done for this sport in establishing the gold standard of semi-pro, underground, backyard, Taylor Swift, Mickey Mouse type wrestling. For what this man has done, there would be none of those companies if it wasn't for XCW. XCW is always the gold standard. That's why it's going strong for 20 years. It's going to go strong for another 20 more years. And that's why he is absolutely, to me, the newest member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And he will be inducted on Thursday, December the 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, the Reverend Tom Bryce, this is an endorsement that is not given, it is earned. And this one, I cannot stress enough again, endorsements, as I always say, are earned, not given. Joshua Fletcher earned this and some, and I want to congratulate him, and I can't wait to bring him back 2 weeks from tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. So obviously, I've got that out of the way. Mr. Parsley is coming back on here to be inducted next Thursday, time to be determined. But I want to ask you then, and a few other things here about your career. If there were one or two moments that stood out most in your career in XCW, what would they be?
Winning Extreme King and eventually winning the XCW Championship obviously is one of those. I rather enjoyed the entire feud I had with Brandon Hobbs, including the fireball spot, which was my idea. Imagine the shock I had when I went to Fletch with this idea, and Fletch's response was, "We've never done that before. In 20 years, you've never done a fireball spot. We have to do it now."
Fletch said that? Wow, okay.
Yeah, we've never done a fireball spot. Oh, really? Well, let's do one. And my apologies to Evan Phoenix, because of my idea, he got a fireball thrown at him too.
Well, I mean, I guess he'll be known in XCW history for it, at least.
That's true. That's very true.
Fireball being thrown. People always remember the first. There's always the first impressions are the best ones.
That is very true. His first impression smells a little burnt.
Could use some of that fire now we're in winter, getting cold. So at least
that's absolutely true. Yeah, at least he's Brandon was doing him a favor. It's really chilly out.
Okay, so that's obviously important as well. And I guess also, if you had any goals, obviously you've transitioned now into commentary, but what would your goals be for 2024 on behalf of XCW?
Just to continue doing what I'm doing in the commentary booth, trying to continue to elevate the product, continue to be on top of my game in terms of calling the action and storytelling, and just overall, and in terms of editing, just continuing to make the product look as good as I possibly can.
Well, as I continue to say, the editing and what we see visually on XCW socials, especially on YouTube, XC Wrestling 1, I mean, it's just, oh my God, I think it's the best. It's right up there with,
well, thank you.
Raw. It's right up there. It's because of your work and so many other people at the lead. Because again, a lot of these companies, they come on, we love them, but the editing here in this company speaks volumes. And I couldn't let you leave without me asking formally about the first real wrestler, Mr. Justin Parsley. Obviously, he's the one that, certainly when you speak about him on social media engagements rise for XCW. When you talk about him, you think about him, all of a sudden the viewership goes up, or you think about the followers go up, and the trends certainly go up, certainly more than my crypto account these days. But Justin Parsley, you've gotten a chance to see him in the ring. Now you're getting a chance to call his actions. He is one half of the XCW Tag Team Champions, and he had laid claim here that he is the foundation of tag teams, not just in XCW, alongside the essential one, Rob Slater, but this entire sport. And apparently it got a team from Iowa. It perked their attention. It got their ears up. And I was wondering, what do you think about all that? And what do you think about the first real wrestler, Mr. Justin Parsley, Parsley's himself, and anything else you may want to add that I'm sure he'll certainly have a thought or two about it when he comes back on the show next week?
Obviously, I love a little healthy competition, and these two teams are going to tear it up. I cannot
Ooh,
wait to
and I
see it
know these
happen.
teams real well. This team in
Yeah.
Iowa, the Foundation, Omen Black, and Soldier GP. I've known these guys a long time. Over the past year, they have been a staple on Sportswire platforms for just about a year. In fact, these guys have been so deadly. These guys have been so brute-like, you might want to say, in their force that they had a champion in a company in Wisconsin. He basically didn't want to face Omen Black for basically the duration of the entire calendar year. This is going to be a war between two teams who call themselves the Foundation.
Absolutely. And I cannot wait to see it happen. I cannot wait to be there to call the match. It's going to be a one you cannot miss. Um, in terms of Justin Parsley himself, I've known him for a year now, and he's already one of my best friends. That tells you a lot about Justin Parsley as a person. He's just a lot of fun to hang out
Yeah,
with. He's a lot of fun
Parsley,
to be
there's something
around.
about this guy. He's got like, I don't know if it's a pep in his step. He's got enthusiasm. He's got
Yes,
something about him that,
all of the above.
yeah,
All
he's
of the
just
above.
he's got like some charisma. Not
Definitely.
to say that nobody in the locker room has charisma, but he's got an extra set of it. He's got an extra
Yes.
kind of almost something there. He's got confidence. He's got swagger. He's got like he's in a way like you want to be around this guy.
Yeah, he's got absolutely got a magnetic personality. And it shows in the work that he does in the ring, and it shows on the work that he does on the mic. And
Yep.
and if you knew him behind the scenes like I did, he is just as cool a guy behind the scenes as he is on camera. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. And again, the fact that I've only known him a year and he's already one of my best friends tells you a lot. Tells
And
you a
what was it
whole
like?
lot.
I asked Julian Voigt Jacobs this last week on the show. What was it like calling that match? Because I think in a lot of ways, that match between either you want to call them the EBW rejects or the EBW hopefuls and Julian Voigt Jacobs and Mitchell Maverick against, Slater and Parsley. What was that like calling that match? 'Cause I think that match might have stole the show in a card that was just amazing.
That was a very stacked card, and yeah, I would absolutely agree that the tag match absolutely stole the show. Calling any match like that is just exciting, especially when it keeps you on the edge of your seat. Little thing you might have seen in the background of some of those shots is me and JJ actually just walking around on the stage. We couldn't stay seated. That's how good it was. We couldn't
I
stay
always see
seated in the
guys. I
booth.
don't want to say who they are, but in some matches, I do see certain people that kind of go when you guys are in the gym in the St. Paul's gym. I'll see like all of a sudden people go run around and they'll go like this, they'll go that. It means that okay, it's a
I
big moment.
I love when we do shows in the St. Paul gym just because of that. I love
Me too.
seeing those
I love the
reactions.
gym. I love that gym. When you guys go out
Yes.
there, it's like there's something there. It's like ooh ah ooh ah.
And that's why I'm going to enjoy this tag match that Parsley and Rob are going to do at Encounters, because we're filming all of Encounters at that gym.
Ooh,
So
ooh.
it's going to be I can't wait. I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Oh, I cannot wait to talk about it. We just had Omen Black on Soldier GP Friday. Parsley's coming back right after the match. We're going to watch the match and then talk about it with Parsley and talk about the Viewers' Choice Awards. Boy, I cannot wait for next Thursday. We got Viewers' Choice Awards. We've got Encounters episode. I mean, boy, I love that thunder where all of a sudden it comes out and you see the XCW logo and Encounters. Boy, I cannot wait. Boy, it is going to be stacked. And also, Michael Blackheart wants to say, much love, Blackheart, top guys forever. I know Justin spent a few hours with him Thanksgiving Eve. Excellent stuff. I appreciate that. We'll talk about that with Parsley's, certainly for sure, on next week's show. So I have to ask you two more questions. The first is,
Okay.
you and Trinity, I mean, what a, I guess, roller coaster of a relationship in terms of everything you guys have went through. And, it seems like after what we saw when you retired, that now it seems like all is like everything has kind of come full circle in a way.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was starting to heal anyway when we were doing the when we were in that storyline with ACT, because the breakup had happened prior to all
You'd
that.
mentioned that in the documentary. Yep.
Yeah, but Trinity and I have been through a lot together, and we're on the same page now. Like we're definitely back on we're on friendly terms. We're still friends. We've always been great friends, but we're still friends. And that's the biggest takeaway, is for us to have gone through all the stuff that we've gone through, both in front of and behind the camera, and to come out of the end of it still friends. It speaks a lot to her character, that she went through all that and still saw me as a friend. You just don't get friends better than that, to be honest.
No, and she's got a lot of character. She does a
Yes.
phenomenal job. She's got way better pipes than me because she does all the introductions, and she does a great
Yep,
job. We'll definitely
she
bring her
does.
back, and that's why I wanted to give her a big shout out, and obviously want to recognize her for a few minutes. And I had to ask you before closing thoughts. So JJ, what is he like now being alongside JJ? If I don't ask you about JJ, I'm not doing my job. So what has it been like having him as a play-by-play partner?
It's great. JJ and I play off of each other really, really well. There's definitely chemistry there between the two of us on the table. I don't think I could have had that kind of chemistry with many of the other people in the XCW on the table. I think Justin Parsley would have been one. Fletch, definitely. And just so you all know, Fletch and I are doing the commentary live for Encounters, and that's going to be a ball too. So yes, Fletch and I will be on commentary for that show. It's going to be amazing.
I
But
can't wait.
I really think JJ has upped his game after I got onto the table, because there's definitely Steve-O and JJ had a great dynamic together on the table. And you can definitely tell that they've worked together for years and years and years. But definitely something changed when I came to the table, and for the better, honestly. JJ and
So do
I have
I.
just been knocking it out of the park, I feel like, on
I
commentary
think
ever
what you
since.
guys have, again, it's like, to me, very much similar to the King and JR, and
Mhm.
sort of that play-by-play off each other. I mean, Corey Graves and Michael Cole, you could certainly say they
Yep.
had done a great job together. But with you guys, you have something special there. That's why I'm so excited about the future of XCW, and I'm so excited about everything to come. And obviously, as we close this season, put the bow in the final chapter, we're getting ready for 2024, but still a lot of stuff ahead in 2023. We've got Clash of the Christmas, we've got New Year's Nemesis, we've got also Viewers' Choice Awards. We've got shows coming up with Aaron Blaze and Chris Jones, documentary-like shows. So a lot of great stuff here. And before I get to closing thoughts here, Michael wants to say, as I tell every XCW roster member, my front door is open due to you giving Festus a wrestling home. Thank you. So I want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
And what has XCW meant to you in your career overall?
XCW was a surprise to me that honestly, I am so glad that I got to experience. XCW has been a huge part of my career now, and I am thankful for every second that I get to spend in that locker room, behind the camera, on that table with all the guys. And I could not be more thankful.
And we could certainly not be any more thankful to have you a part of the XCW galaxy, and being somebody each and every week we can count on to paint that picture for us, to tell us what's going on, and to be able to give us all the things that we want to see from our favorite XCW superstars here, and much, much more. That's why you want to go out there and support XCW and all of their different platforms here. And who knows, maybe in 2024, when we see Blackheart back, I'm going to induct him into the Sportswire Hall of Fame, because I think with his career, it's actually pretty worthwhile. Because you know what? Look at his body of work in the XAWA and XCW. And I think definitely down the road in 2024, you're going to add something else to that resume there. So definitely stay tuned for that.
That would be great. I appreciate that.
You're going to definitely get there. I promise you, you're going to get in, because the committee is of one. It's me. So it's the committee of one. So it's pretty easy to, get into the committee, But no, we do try to make a process. But I think your career definitely is right up there. We're going to induct Julian Voigt Jacobs. We're going to induct Fletch, obviously Justin. And then I think right after that, sometime in the first quarter of 2024, I want to induct you and bring you on here. So we're going to definitely do that. But until then, I want to obviously give you the floor. You're a busy man, because you got to get back on commentary. You got to get back on editing. You got to do all the different things that you do here. So I want to give you the floor, sir. Give you some closing thoughts and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. It has been an absolute tremendous honor. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And the floor is yours, and be my guest.
I have enjoyed it, and thank you for having me on, Tom. Of course, everybody sees the links at the bottom: the XCW Shelbyville, XCW All Access, XC Wrestling 1 on YouTube. Be sure to tune in. This next Thursday is the Viewers' Choice Awards, 6 p.m. Eastern. Following that will be the very first episode of XCW Encounters. Clash on Christmas, December 25th. New Year's Nemesis on January 1st. And I will tell you right now, February 8th, Cold Day in Hell will air on XC Wrestling 1. Just so you know.
Ooh, you know what? I tell you what. Right now, it might not be a cold day in hell. Maybe we're in good moods. We're in good cheer. We're thinking about the eggnog. We're thinking about the dreidel for Hanukkah. But forget about all that because February the 8th is a hot skip away
That's
because we're
right.
going to see a cold day in hell. And something tells me here, right in the middle of winter, in the thick of things, XCW is going to certainly warm things up in hell. And we
That's right.
cannot wait. And that's why we want everybody to follow also Mr. Blackheart himself on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Eric Blackheart with a K, not C, and XCW. All of their platforms are right there. It's simple, to the point. And also go to Shop Zone, buy a shirt, support XCW. Don't buy an EBW shirt because Blackheart's wearing the XCW shirt because we're certainly we got Julian Voigt Jacobs. He'll tell us to wear the EBW shirt. But in the meantime, get an XCW shirt. Go to Shop Zone. Everything you do that supports XCW by buying a shirt, buying merchandise, goes back into the funds for the program because these things are certainly
Yes.
they're very costly to go out there to the St. Paul's gym, to edit with Mental Lab Studios, all those different things. So go out there and please support XCW and everything that it has to offer. My friend, I cannot thank you enough. I want to wish you and your family a happy holiday. I can't wait to have you back on to induct you in the first quarter of 2024. I can't wait to watch you back on the call with you and JJ. Hopefully, I'll give you some more fodder so you can make fun of me on TV. I'm only kidding. It was a joke. I'm trying to work on my comedian stuff because obviously I did such a bad job at this. Maybe I should try stand-up comedy. Only kidding. But I really can't thank enough for everything that you do on behalf of the Galaxy, everything that you do on behalf of this company to give us the news, to give us your basically honest opinions, and also painting a picture for all of us to continue to support and love the gold standard of this sport in XCW. Thank you so much. Happy holidays. Can't wait to have you back on in 2024.
Same here. Looking forward to it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the man that you hear on the call for all XCW shows. That is Mr. Eric Blackheart himself. And Eric was here to talk about the final chapter, also the season that was here in his decorated career here in XCW, which led him to be a world champion, an international champion, a hardcore champion, and a tag team champion, plus his run in the much, much, much respected and beloved XAWA company. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. If you're on sportswireradio.org, you're going back to your regularly scheduled programming, which is MLB Hot Stove coverage with the Talking Rivals and Pinstripe Chronicles. But if you're here on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and on sportswireradio.org's Watch Now button, Friday afternoon, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with Jimmy Controversy to talk about his match, his death match with Hardcore coming up on January the 6th. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sports Wire Radio.